Before we get going, as always, we have a few just housekeeping items I'd like to go through with everybody. I'm going to start off by reminding everybody that today's webinar is being recorded and that all registered attendees will receive links to the on-demand version of the webinar as well as a PDF of the slides. If any moment you experience any technical difficulties, please email us at webinars@biakelsey.com. We have staff standing by that can help assist you there. And finally, I'd like to remind everybody, or encourage everybody, to please ask questions throughout today's webinar. If any moment you have a question, please just type it into your GoToWebinar panel, and we'll try to address it at the end of today's webinar, and I'll follow up with you afterward. Okay, so with that, we're going to move on to our agenda slide. Those of you in today's webinar know, mobile advertising has seen tremendous growth over the past couple of years. It is fueling unique marketing opportunities, as well as unique challenges for companies trying to successfully manage this channel. To address these challenges and trends, we have focused today's webinar on pay-per-click advertising, the evolution of mobile marketing, and how advanced call tracking and conversation analytics can better help your business grow. We are pleased to have two great speakers with us today, each of whom are great resources for these topics. To start off, we're going to have Michael Boland, who is BIA Kelsey's Vice President of Content and our Senior Analyst. Michael has authored many in-depth reports on the changing local media landscape, including online video, social networking, and mobile. He is a regular contributor to the Huffington Post and Business Insider, and is a leading expert on mobile advertising. After Michael is finished, he's going to hand it over to Carlton Van Putten, who is the Vice President of Marketing at Contact Point. LogMyCalls, who is sponsoring today's webinar, is a division of Contact Point. Carlton handles global sales and marketing. He has spent the bulk of his career working with companies focused on customer intelligence, asset tracking, and call center services. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here with us today. So as you guys can see from our agenda, we have a great deal of material to get to. So without further delay, I'm going to turn things over to Michael Boland, who is going to set the stage for us in mobile and local. Michael?
Thank you, Patrick. That's well said. So as Patrick mentioned, my name is Mike Boland. I'm an analyst with BIA Kelsey, and I hope to really kick things off today with an industry-level analysis of the top trends we're seeing that are really driving the opportunity with call-based advertising and monetization. And that involves a lot of our forecast data and viewpoints on really the underlying trends in the sectors that touch and lead up to call monetization and pay-per-call. So we'll get into lots of that data in a second, and then I'll hand it off to Carlton, who will show us some examples of how LogMyCalls in particular is building a business around these trends and what it's doing and seeing and executing. And there are some good takeaways there for really anyone interested in this market opportunity. But first, before we get into all that, a note about BIA Kelsey. And Carlton in a little while will likewise give an introduction for LogMyCalls and what it does specifically. But for those unfamiliar, BIA Kelsey is a market research and analyst firm that focuses on all things local. So that includes traditional media like newspapers, yellow pages, television, radio, as well as emerging digital media with really deep ties to local like search and social and my coverage area of mobile. So, all the intel and the thought leadership we put together around these areas takes form in lots of ways, including research reports and market forecasts and conferences and live events, advisory services, we do appraisals, and really lots of other things that really kind of bring it all together. So this slide spells out, a lot of the ways that we work with our partners to really hone their product and revenue models and really pinpoint the opportunities in, what's really a transforming mobile local media space, or local media altogether, not just mobile, of course. So, in a more general sense, for the purposes of this webinar, really think of us as, thought leaders on the quickly evolving world of local and location-targeted media. So with all of that said, let's get right into the data, and we can go on to the next slide. So a good place to start to really kind of tell the story of call monetization is with underlying usage volumes for mobile and local search. As the opportunity we're going to go over today really is grounded in a lot of ways in these figures. So right now, smartphone penetration in the U.S. is at 64% and quickly growing. 20% of overall search queries are happening on the mobile device. But more importantly, and kind of, I think more interestingly, almost half of those have local intent to find something to buy or to do or to see or to eat in one's local vicinity. So that's pretty high when you consider that the comparative share of local searches we see on the desktop web is only about 20%. So mobile clearly indexes higher for local intent, which has lots of important implications for what we're going to talk about today, which we'll get into. So if we go to the next slide, further along those lines, I put together a mobile ad revenue forecast twice per year, which has turned out to be pretty accurate in the past 4 years I've been doing it. And the current outlook is that we'll see mobile ad revenues in the U.S. go from $3.2 billion last year to almost $17 billion in 2017. Now, interestingly, the portion of that ad spend going to location-targeted advertising is about 38% now, but we believe it's going to rise to over half of the U.S. mobile ad spend by the end of our forecast period. And there are a lot of reasons for that, including some of the mobile usage figures I mentioned on the previous slide. We also expect advertiser evolution and adoption that's really going to be based on those usage realities and kind of come around to those realities and drive their strategies. And then lastly, we project premiums on location-targeted advertising. That's directly a result of the higher performance of kind of localized mobile ads. And we're already seeing that because of those ads and those formats, their ability to drive tangible leads for advertisers, such as high-value phone calls, as we'll get into. So if we go into the next slide, really kind of taking that a step further, within that location-targeted segment I just spoke about, we further subdivide the ad spend by format. And the clear takeaway here is that search is the leading form of mobile ads and will continue to grow throughout our forecast period. And there are lots of reasons for that, including, similar to what I just talked about, higher premiums and ad rates when compared with display and SMS and other formats, and higher performance due to search's kind of intent-driven use case. There's also lots of implications for what Google has done with enhanced campaigns, which is an entirely different subject, but does come into play here in the growth of search as a mobile ad format and really a benefactor of growing ad dollars that we expect. But what all this really kind of leads up to is the implications for our main topic today of call-based ad models. So my read on these figures is that the growth and opportunity in mobile search really correlates to the growth and opportunity for call-based mobile advertising because they're both highly intent-driven and lower funnel user activities. And moreover, search will really be a fertile environment for pay-per-call ad models to live. So, search's growth creates a certain baseline, I believe, for the growth in call-based monetization. So if we go to the next slide, case in point is that we see high conversion rates for calls that result from mobile search. So we calculate a 57% call conversion rate, from landing pages or landing page views that results from mobile local search. So that outperforms other benchmarks such as call conversions from landing page views that results from a desktop local search. So when you think about it, that all kind of stands to reason because the device is, after all, a phone and it makes phone calls. So it's a more seamless and intuitive process from search to call from really a hardware perspective. But also, I think it's interesting that a bigger reason is because of the mobile device's portability, which enables a use case of on-the-go search, and that carries a certain degree of immediacy to it. That use case tends to be more commercially oriented, and thus it creates a lot of interesting opportunities for advertisers and for publishers that are working with advertisers to get in front of high-intent users in new ways. So if we go to the next slide, further in support of that idea, Google reports that 73% of mobile searches trigger additional actions and conversions. So, among those are things like visiting a store or making a purchase and making phone calls. And these are all very locally oriented actions. And more importantly, they're highly valued actions from the perspective of advertisers, as we'll get into in a minute. But if we go to the next slide, taking this even one step further, these actions aren't just happening at high volumes. I think it's very interesting. They're also happening quickly. So again, this is a Google statistic that 55% of purchase-related conversions they're seeing are happening within 1 hour of the initial search. So that tells me that mobile users are indeed lower funnel. They are higher intent consumers. They're literally an hour away from a conversion, and therefore I believe the opportunity is to influence those buying decisions. That the opportunity and ability to do so is high because of this kind of lower funnel mode of conduct. It's much higher than any other media that we analyze. So what this all tells me is that all signs point to very compelling reasons to capture that user intent. The user intent is there, so mobile publishers who aren't providing optimized content or ads or anything else that they're delivering, if it does not include kind of actionable cues for users to make phone calls or generate directions or other trackable calls to action, if you're not doing that, I think it's a missed opportunity because the intent is there. So if we go to the next slide, I think it's also important to note that not only is the user intent there to do things like make phone calls, but it also happens to be a very highly valued form of leads for businesses. So this is our BIA Kelsey's local commerce monitor survey data where businesses are indeed valuing phone calls and reporting high ROI for incoming phone leads. So businesses reported to us that phone calls are actually the highest valued lead source. And I think also to kind of unpack further one thing I alluded to earlier, it's also important to note that advertisers who are saying this most happen to be in very high value verticals like professional services, so think lawyers and dentists, or auto, either auto repair, auto sales, and travel. So these kind of high dollar volume categories are yet another reason why kind of the art of driving phone calls is such an opportune area that anyone in advertising and local media should be paying attention to. If we go to the next slide, more data from Local Commerce Monitor breaks down this ROI assessment a bit further. So within each lead source that we survey businesses about, we ask them of the quality assessment of those leads. So the previous slide data point I mentioned was more a binary figure. What's your most valued lead source? This now breaks it down a bit further into kind of a qualitative assessment of each lead source on a scale of poor to excellent. So here again, calls got the highest frequency of good and excellent ratings from businesses. They're the two top box scores, as we sometimes say in survey parlance. So you can see how that also stacks up against some of these other lead forms like email, mapping, and even in-person visits. So I think that's a strong vote of confidence, or yet another strong vote of confidence for calls. So if we go to the next slide, what all this really leads up to is the revenue opportunity for call-based ad models. If we pan back and look at the broader market of all local advertising that's spent with the intention of driving phone calls to businesses, it's a $68 billion market. That's more than half of the $132 billion local ad market in the U.S., which includes television, radio, newspaper, online, and mobile. So the opportunity definitely transcends just mobile. The need to drive calls to businesses is happening throughout all of these media. Mobile is a place where it's growing the fastest. And also Carlton's going to say a few words about the size of this market and how LogMyCalls is tackling it in terms of this kind of quantifying the overall market opportunity. But if we go to the next slide, kind of winding down here, in conclusion, what's the lesson in all of this? So the stars are definitely aligning in lots of ways to make this an opportune area. As we discussed, for users, their local commercial intent signals an opportunity. For advertisers, their needs and their desires are very much aligned with that in that they value phone leads, especially in those kind of high-value categories we discussed and many more. And then on a marketplace level, this is leading to major growth in call-based advertising. So what it all comes down to is essentially that publishers and the advertisers they work with, for that matter, should take all of this to heart by evolving their ad campaign strategies and content delivery strategies to provide the right calls to action to capture that intent within their sites or their apps or their mobile ad experiences or whatever the delivery happens to be. So that includes lots of call links that are present in these kind of formats, but also, equally important, all of the kind of back-end stuff that stands behind that, like tracking and analyzing and all the stuff involved in kind of call monetization best practices. And I should also give a shout out here to the fact that call monetization and tracking goes beyond just advertising. That's mostly kind of the context in which we're exploring it today. But the analytics from incoming calls can also work towards operational efficiencies. I think that's another really interesting area where this is developing. For example, applying predictive modeling from the call analytics to optimized incoming calls within large call centers, for example, to do things like route the warmest leads to the best sales reps. And there's lots of other ways that the age of big data is coming into this kind of call tracking and analytics world to do really interesting things with incoming phone calls. So this will all continue to develop. For that, the operational angle and the advertising opportunity that we're mostly looking at today, we can go to the next slide. Lots of these signs really point to an opportune area of development where attention should be paid by anyone in the advertising and local media industry. So that really kind of addresses and hopefully answers the question of why. So what we want to do now is drill down into the question of how. Using LogMyCalls as a representative example of a company operating in this space and what they're doing and seeing and building. Some interesting stuff there. So with that, you're probably sick of hearing my voice. So I'm very happy to introduce and pass the torch to Carlton Van Putten, who is the man of the hour here and the VP of Marketing for LogMyCalls. Excuse me. So Carlton, off to you. Take it away, sir.
Thanks very much, Mike. Appreciate that, and also would like to extend a welcome to everyone that has joined us. I want to kind of take you through some of the how to leverage this opportunity when it comes to mobile click-to-call opportunities and mobile monetization of search. I think we're going to have the controls handed over to me in a second here, and I'll be able to kind of walk you through the my portion of the presentation. And if we can't do that, maybe the moderator can go ahead and click to the next slide. Great. Okay, thank you very much. So a little bit about LogMyCalls. We are a call tracking and conversation analytics software as a service. And we're really kind of a next generation player in this space. Call tracking as a concept has been around for several years. But there are some things missing with this growth of mobile and the intense attention that's being paid to phone calls as a channel for customer communication because of the growth in mobile. And so we've developed from the ground up really a new approach, a new paradigm to call tracking and what it should be used for and what you should expect from someone who's providing a call tracking type of metric service. And our claim to fame is really that we not only tell you what happens before a call arrives, what happens, how somebody gets to the phone number and how somebody picks up the phone and calls you, but we also tell you what happens on the phone call, which can be highly valued, especially as you begin to drive more and more phone calls. I think I have keyboard control now. It may take a little bit, maybe delayed a little bit here. So, as Michael mentioned, 68.4 billion is the number that we're dealing with when it comes to spending on advertising that drives phone calls, which, if you look back at the original number, was about half of the dollars that are being spent for the local advertising is being spent to get someone to pick up the phone. That continues to grow, and contrary to to what we've seen from a marketing standpoint with driving traffic online and increased web-based leads, the phone is really changing that and changing it back to focus on the phone call itself. And it's a significant number in terms of overall advertising. Patrick, I might have you, well, let's see how quickly we can tab through these as well. So just to go back and kind of describe what call tracking is and how it's used for this particular type of use case for mobile. You'd advertise a tracking number generally on a landing page or in the call extensions, for example, of Google AdWords campaign. That tracking number is used to identify specifically potentially a source for that campaign, or even potentially an AdWords ad itself that you're doing online, or display advertising, or what have you. And you'd use various tracking numbers to be able to delineate between different sources. That phone number would then route through a data center or software service like ours, and then it would ring through to your final location, whether it's your store or call center or what have you. Generally, what you've been able to get from this type of information is some very basic, data. The raw number of calls, the referring source. If you're using some type of an integration between your web activities and call tracking, you may be able to collect keyword data, although that's become an issue with Google's new privacy policies, and you get call duration. And the benefits of all of that are, you can attribute this offline phone interaction to some type of a marketing activity, whether it's an online or offline marketing activity. You can improve your marketing ROI, and you can gain visibility into which campaigns are working, which campaigns are not working to drive you phone calls. And so it's been valuable, but there's still a problem that exists, and the problem gets bigger because of the fact that your phone call volume now, because of mobile search, is going to get bigger. It's the most highly valued lead. You want people to pick up the phone and call you. It's the device itself is more conducive to a phone call, and people are going to want to do that action more so than they might from a desktop. And so phone calls now cannot be ignored, and you can't really expect people to fill out a web form, for example. They might click on a map if you're a location-based business that people want to come and visit. But you really are missing a ton of data that you're normally able to collect on the web. It's just a data black hole on the phone, because you don't know how interested they were in buying. You don't know whether you got personally identifiable information. You don't know whether the customer was satisfied or not satisfied with the offer. You don't know what the experience was on the phone for the customer, for the person that picked up the phone. And this is an exceptional challenge for people that may not necessarily be at the location where the phone call is answered. You might have a chain of tire stores. You can't be at all those endpoints where people are calling in and gauge whether this was a good lead or a bad lead, whether the sale was made or not made, and whether the person that was on the phone did their job to convert that caller into a potential customer. So this void, which has kind of been in the periphery as we've been driving significant kind of web activity and online lead generation, it's coming to the forefront as phone calls become a larger and larger percentage. So how are you going to be able to get control of your campaigns, get more data, get more insight from the performance of your campaigns if all you're going to get is just that the call arrived and it lasted 2.5 minutes, and after that we really don't know what happens? That's a real detriment to phone calls, and it's been a nightmare for marketers because we generally like to be performance-based, and we like to have as much data as possible, and we like to control the customer experience for as long as possible, and the phone adds a significant amount of variability to our ability to control that and gain insight into it. And plus, we're used to extremely deep analytics, right? So if you go and you look at your Google Analytics, or you look at Omniture, or whatever web analytics tool you're using, the depth of data about the customer's behavior on the web is significant. You know a lot about that customer when they're interacting with you on the web, and then you start to interact with them on the phone, and you know very little. And that's really what LogMyCalls, that's our mission, is really to give you call analytics that are as deep as web analytics when somebody picks up the phone and calls you, because once again, you're dealing with high-value leads that are calling in, that are in market and are interested in your product or service. So what we've introduced actually as of just last week we launched conversation analytics as a feature within the LogMyCalls call tracking platform. And you've got some screenshots here, and I'm not going to go into too much of the functionality of the app, but let me just sort of explain for you what conversation analytics does and how it works, so that you understand the underpinnings behind why we think this is a significant leap in terms of the kind of data that you can and should expect from your marketing that's driving phone calls. Conversation analytics works by actually recording the phone conversation. So, you know, if you've ever heard this call may be recorded for quality and training purposes, your call is being recorded, and many of us record our calls today. Historically, the only way we could get data out of what happens in the content of that call is for somebody to sit down, listen to that call recording, and identify some metrics, identify things that happen. Was this a sale or a missed opportunity? Was this a good lead or a bad lead? And so somebody would literally have to manually go through and do this. And Contact Point, which is the maker of LogMyCalls, has been in the business of doing the manual piece of this for 12 years. So we know a lot about what has to go into analyzing the content of a phone call. But what we've done now from a technology standpoint is the technology is matured enough for us to be able to run recorded conversations through an analytics engine, which then takes the content of that call and runs very sophisticated and very broad-based search algorithms across the conversation itself. It's not the simple 2- and 3-word keyword searches that you might do in a Google search. These are very complex search algorithms that include proximity metrics and voice trimmer metrics and lots of other types of things that you couldn't possibly, as a novice, search for. But what we give you out of that is we give you an indication of whether a particular event took place on the phone or not. So, did this customer mention a competitor? Is this customer price sensitive because they gave you some negative price feedback? Do they have buying urgency because they're interested in buying this within the next X number of days or X number of hours? Was this really a sales inquiry, or was this a customer calling in to cancel and they just happened to get a hold of one of your marketing tracking numbers and this is a cancellation request? All of this information can be gleaned from the content of a phone call, and so now, in addition to collecting some of the call tracking metrics about where this call came from on the web or offline, now we can also marry that with, okay, now this is what happened on the call. This was a junk call, or this was a sales inquiry, but there was no conversion because there was no appointment scheduled, or there was no sale made. There's no sale language on the phone. So this was a missed opportunity, which allows us as a marketer or as a sales manager to potentially go back and recover missed opportunities or missed sales and be able to actually increase revenue through retargeting campaigns that might go back out to people that may have called but didn't necessarily convert. So this intelligence from the conversation itself, you can see, begins to fill the void of the deep analytics that you'd want to see when you're analyzing the quality of a campaign that you're driving on your mobile platform. You really have to take charge of this last mile of the delivery. And I'll use an example of how this works in the context of Jack, who calls for an auto insurance quote. Within the context of the call, we'll identify words like, I need a quote on my BMW X5, 2007, I have wife, 2 teenagers in the car. That, combined with other particular key phrases in the conversation, would create a sales inquiry indicator. And so that sales inquiry indicator in a conversation analytics platform would then show you with a certain degree of confidence that this was in fact a sales inquiry. I have a policy expiring in about a week. We look for expiration times, or we look for words around buying urgency, and that can trigger a certain the buying urgency indicator to fire inside the application. This is all something that's done in an automated way. You don't have to build these search engines and these algorithms. These are already built, and what you're getting out of it is a number on a scale of 0 to 100 based on our confidence of whether there's some buying urgency related to this call, or whether this is a sales inquiry related to this call. And if we got personally identifiable information, along with certain other key indicators that might happen inside of a phone call, we can actually gauge the quality of this lead. If this person call in, not give us any information, well, that's not a very high quality lead because we have no way to get back in touch with them, follow up, and potentially make the sale if there's a missed opportunity. But if we're getting personally identifiable information, they're in market and they have a buying urgency, and they're talking about your particular product, and they're giving you compliments and positive customer feedback based in the conversation. All of those can add up to a very high quality lead score, which, you know, each of these data points can be used to drive actions, either automated or non-automated actions from a phone call to various types of other workflow services that you might have as a part of your business. So what kind of insights can you gain from conversation analytics? Well, you can track your close ratios. So, you know, you can listen for conversion language. Sales reps are notoriously bad at keeping detailed records of what happens on a phone call. So did you just schedule an appointment with this person or not? Well, you don't need to rely on somebody to manually enter or give you that information, or you don't have to rely on the CRM to give you that information. You can listen for conversion language. And if conversion language, the outcome of the call for you is a booked appointment, then we're listening for language around appointment and appointment confirmation on the part of the caller. If it's a sale, because it's a transactional type of a phone call where you're selling something immediately over the phone, we're listening for payment language. We're listening for various other types of conversion options that might take place for all the different kinds of businesses that are out there. So you can gain close ratio information. You can look at missed opportunities. Missed opportunities in this case would be that this was a true sales inquiry with someone in market, a high lead quality score, and no conversion took place. So within LogMyCalls, for example, you can identify missed opportunities with a certain degree of confidence. You can review that particular call if you want, or even without reviewing the call, if the confidence indication from the system is high enough, you can actually send an alert back to your CRM that there was a missed opportunity for this particular caller that called in. You can flag it or send an alert to a sales manager or notify the owner of a business or what have you. And so you can literally go back and based on this information and recapture lost leads, which could be a significant uptick. You can listen for junk calls. So one of the biggest concerns when you're driving mobile marketing is, you know, how many of these calls are butt dials, or how many of these calls are people that are calling for reasons other than the offer that you necessarily gave them on the landing page. And quality, lead quality, is an important element of that that you'll need to track when you're doing mobile marketing. Interesting statistic around a Google experiment that we did. Google, as you know, offers call extensions in their Google AdWords, which allows you as the searcher to click on a phone number and dial your place of business that you want to call. If anybody's ever done that before, you know what the experience is like. You click on the phone number, and then you'll get a confirmation pop-up from your iPhone or from your Android phone that says, do you want to make this phone call? Or you'll have to actually execute a secondary action after the click to call in order to initiate the phone call. Well, meanwhile, Google is charging you for that click. They don't care whether the customer does that secondary action or not. They are concerned about monetizing the click. And so you'll get charged for that click. But what we found was, because we actually used LogMyCalls tracking numbers in someone's call extension campaign, was that 40% of those clicks were abandoned before the secondary action was done. In other words, 40% of those calls were never completed, although Google did charge you for that click. And inside your Google dashboard, those will all look like conversions, and you'll have this conversion rate that looks pretty satisfactory when in fact only 60% of those calls are actually going through. And then in addition to that, when we listened to those calls and analyzed them, people were calling 20% of the time to confirm a reservation or ask for directions or change a reservation or something like that, which is a junk call when it comes to your marketing campaigns. And so to calculate a true cost per lead, you're going to need more insight into what happens on a phone call. So that type of a metric is extremely important when you're trying to complete the picture for you from a marketing ROI and return on ad spend standpoint. And then customer satisfaction is always a concern for everyone, because we know it's important to keep a customer. It's a lot cheaper to keep and sell a customer more than to acquire a new customer. And so, you can look at things like customer sentiment and look at, are you getting escalation complaints or customer complaints or negative price feedback, or you're getting anything back from the customer, even during the sales process, where they're voicing objections, so that you can gauge, how your product is performing and how your offer is performing in the market. So conversation analytics today, as of our launch, we are able to track over 30 different events that take place on a phone call. And our goal in the design of this feature is to keep it simple, stupid for users. We really don't want it to be a complex process. And so we've hidden the complexity of all of this by really just building the ability for you to choose from a set of pre-formed indicators. And we've got more coming, and we build more all the time. We build custom indicators for some of our clients as well. But you can look at things like lead quality or buying urgency. You can even look at the sales skills of the people on the phone. Are they using the proper greeting at the beginning, giving their name and thanking the caller? Are they asking for the business, asking for the sale, which, by most studies will tell you just the simple act of asking for the business on a call can increase conversion rates 10 to 12x in some businesses. We've seen in the hospitality industry, for example, asking for the business more than once significantly increases conversion rates to book the room. And so you can look at the sales skills of the person. You can look for competitor mentions, commitments to buy on behalf of the customer as a conversion event, for example. And then looking at things more soft skill related, things like empathy in an agent. Are they empathizing with the customer who may be calling because they have a problem to solve? They got a leaky pipe, or they've got a broken air conditioning. Are they empathetic to that, which helps to build rapport, which frankly helps to convert a customer? Those types of soft skills are important. So we're looking at very hard indicators, and we're looking at very soft indicators, and we're giving you a broad range of information about what happens on that phone call that you can then tie to your call tracking metrics. So for us, this is, and I think for the industry in general, it's good timing, because this growth in mobile is going to fuel a deep need to change the quality and the quantity of the information that you gather about phone interactions. You really cannot afford, when you're starting to spend money on mobile marketing and starting to spend money on driving phone calls, you cannot afford the blind spot that exists when you're not measuring what happens on a phone call. Because our customers have already shown that using this information during our beta period, when we were working with specific customers, that we're able to show tangible improvement on return on ad spend. I'll give you an example of one of those. It's a lawn care company that does a lot of direct mail, and their direct mail, they were expecting to drive a lot of new business. What they discovered was there's a significant number of their existing customers who get these direct mail pieces, who then remember that they wanted to change their service or do something related to their service. And so these calls that would come in from these direct mail pieces would in fact not be new customers. And so they thought they were getting a lot of new business, and they were not getting as much as they wanted. And so what the action that caused is, let's do a suppression list of our customers on the direct mail pieces and be more specific about who we're mailing out to, which obviously is going to increase your new business and lower your acquisition costs, because you're not wasting your new business marketing dollars on your existing customers. Improving conversion rates, obviously, there's a bunch of things you can do to improve conversion rates. Most of it probably revolves around paying attention to the process that someone engages in on a phone call itself, which you can monitor with a lot more frequency and consistency when you don't have to sit down and manually listen to hundreds and thousands of phone calls, which is really how it's done today. You can increase your lead quality, obviously, by testing various calls to action on your landing page, different offers, and clarifying offers that may exist on the web as you listen to the types of leads you're attracting through your offers based on the phone conversations that you're having. And then probably just as significantly as a part of the functionality of this type of a call tracking application is that you can not only get the data and get a lot of it, but you can actually, from within the application itself, trigger actions that may alter your bid management strategy or might trigger marketing automation or post information back to a customer relationship management system. Or if you're concerned about improving the performance of your people over the phone, being able to trigger actions or events inside a learning management system. Because of our API and our webhooks functionality, you're actually able to get more done and actually able to automate those actions based on the data that you're getting from a phone call. So it's a significant opportunity that sort of runs in parallel with this significant opportunity that exists in the pay-per-call space. And so what we're trying to do is we're really trying to raise the game when it comes to call measurement, because the game has obviously been raised, as Michael mentioned, on really the mobile marketing side of things. So if you're looking at embracing mobile marketing in the next fiscal year as you're beginning to put together your marketing strategies, or even if you're just beginning to experiment with it, you don't want to do these experiments, and you definitely don't want to scale your marketing campaigns without having this these additional data elements as part of your metrics. So call tracking has evolved at this point. But prior to us really introducing these features, this was not available. But I think with the introduction of this type of capability, we really are moving towards the same place as web analytics when it comes to giving you deep insights into the customer interaction and the customer experience. I think with that, we actually have some time for, I think we have some time for questions. I'll let Patrick kind of moderate this, but I'll hand the controls back over to Patrick at this point, and some of the wrap-up stuff.
Carlton, I'll jump in here, and we're going to go over a few of the ways that the webinar audience here can engage with you and with LogMyCalls going forward. Really interesting stuff that you mentioned, particularly the Google Call Extensions case study that I think is very supportive that kind of binary pay-per-call is just simply not enough. We really need this deeper level of call quality assessment. So one question I actually have for you, you went into a lot of examples of your conversation analytics. I think that there is so much great data that comes out of that for all of the different applicable areas you mentioned. Sales training, sales force optimization, all of these kind of great ways that data can be used. But one thing I want to zero in on, which I think is a powerful concept, is the concept of attribution. You mentioned that a few times, being able to alter your bid management or even shift budget from search to something else. However, your marketing dollars are best being used, and that becomes more transparent when you have all this qualitative data of where good leads are coming from. So my question is, with that in mind, that closed loop and using that data to iterate a marketing campaign, that last step, are you seeing a lot of business or a lot of take-up, a lot of businesses doing that, or are we at kind of earlier stages that suggests a lot of headroom for that concept to really take off?
That's a great question. I think we're in the early stages of this. I think we're in the early adoption stages of the whole concept. Pay-per-call today measures quality on the duration of a phone call. That's it. Mm-hmm. They say if the phone call lasted more than 2.5 minutes, then this must have been a good call. Well, I can tell you for a fact, when I go in and I look at the conversation analytics on calls over 2.5 minutes for a particular customer, that half of them are customers calling in, and this was a repair shop, for example. Half the customers were calling in to check on their car, and they waited a minute for the guy to get on the phone and tell them what the status of their car was. So they wasted 2.5 minutes. If I would have looked at that call through that marketing tracking number and seen that 2.5-minute metric, I would have said, oh, wow, good lead, cool.
Right.
And I would have been dead wrong. And so I think people aren't seeing that yet, and I think it's going to track along with the adoption and growth of mobile search. Mobile search is going to outstrip desktop search, and calls are going to be a significant part of that. And so when it becomes a larger and larger part of people's budget, I think the blind spot, the lack of control, is going to bug them more and more, and then it's really going to become standard, a standard thing that people are just going to have. But I think we are still in the stages of very early innovators and experimenters, even in the mobile space, even with the growth that you're showing today. It's still people really still fine-tuning and tweaking and experimenting. It's just more and more of them are doing it. And the last 2 years, the 14 and 15 numbers that you show where you have this significant explosion around search, I believe that's when people have finally locked this in, and I think that's when you're going to see really mass adoption of a tool like ours to be able to give you insight into a phone call.
That's very interesting, and I think like a lot of other things, it's a matter of market education, and also like a lot of other things, the buy side kind of lags behind to some degree in terms of, you know, the users, the available technology. Kind of last in that order of things is usually the buy side, and Madison Avenue kind of wrapping their brains around these things. But you also must see a lot of interesting anomalies, or actually not anomalies. What I should say is, you know, things that your data are telling you that really dash some of the common assumptions, or in this case misperceptions, or things like, you know, call length correlates to quality. That's not necessarily the case, and I think, you know, data is really starting to uncover that, which is, I think, a very valuable and powerful thing.
Yeah. So when you got innovators, marketing innovators, you know, they're going to be ahead of the curve significantly on this type of a thing, right? But most people just accept, you know, that duration must mean quality. So that in that particular example, and you know, when an innovator will show you, hey, you know, the emperor's not wearing any clothes here, you know, you have that kind of eye-opening experience where you realize the metric I'm looking at is not the metric I need.
Yeah.
Then it really changes. I think everyone kind of changes. There's a sea change there around.
Yeah. Very interesting. So we're going to go on to a few housekeeping things here. Interesting stuff there. So we've gotten some questions that have come in from the audience. We're actually going to answer those offline. We're also going to be available for questions, you know, in the days and weeks going forward. And the slide you see here has some contact information. The next slide also has my personal contact information. You can reach out to me anytime at mboland@biakelsey.com. Few notes about kind of some of the upcoming things that we have going on, and Carlton, I'll also let you jump in for some of the things you have going on, or any closing notes. But at BIA Kelsey, we have our updated local media forecast. I went over some of the data from our most recent iteration earlier on in the presentation. Our new slides and our new fresh data are coming out within the next month. I've been working hard on that and locking myself away in various spreadsheets and sweat lodges and other things like that to really kind of wrap our brains around all of the kind of complex inputs and exciting things happening in this marketplace to map out the revenue opportunity going forward. We also have our local commerce monitor newest findings coming out. I went over some of that data. That's the sentiment analysis of small businesses and where they're seeing ROI in different forms of leads and how they're shifting their budget accordingly. And then last but certainly not least, our leading and local interactive local media conference, which is coming up. It'll be here before we know it. It's December 10th through 12th in San Francisco. You can actually find out a lot more about it on our website, but we have a really exciting roster that's already bubbling up. We have Gavin Newsom, who's the Lieutenant Governor of San Francisco. We have Kara Swisher from the Wall Street Journal, and Blake Irving from GoDaddy. GoDaddy's been making all kinds of moves and acquisitions to really position itself well in local. Really an exciting story, and really the standard slate, excuse me, of heavy hitters at BIA Kelsey conferences. We have Groupon, Google, you know, all that good stuff you come to expect. So we look forward to seeing you there. Again, you can get more information on the conference on our website. Carlton, in terms of, you know, your contact information or any last words about engaging with this audience, go for it.
Well, yeah. So, and we'll be at that conference, Michael. So we're excited about that, leading and local. I'll be there with our president and founder. So we're looking forward to that. I just want to mention just quickly We almost on a weekly and sometimes on a bi-weekly basis, we really have some great webinars with great knowledgeable presenters just like Michael, and so we're so excited to add this to our portfolio of webinars. I really appreciate Michael taking the time to do this. But if you'd like to see some others, there's a lot of webinars in here around landing page optimization and driving, the SEO rules for today. There's at least a couple dozen webinars that we've done over the last year that focus on topics that are tangential to call tracking, but somewhat related. But they're just very good informational bits on how to just be a better marketer, how to be a better agency, or how to be a better advertiser. And so I would encourage you to go to logmycalls.com/webinar-series if you'd like to check out some more. And of course, if you'd like to talk to us and see conversation analytics in action, you can feel free to give us a call at 855-889-3936, and that will lead you to our sales team, and somebody will walk you through the application, and you can begin to dive deep into the how it works.
Good stuff, Carlton. Thank you very much. So now we'll pass it back over to Patrick just for the final housekeeping notes. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it a lot. Very interesting conversation. So as they alluded to, if you guys have any additional questions, here's some contact information in our speakers today, so please follow up with them. And anyone else that asks questions on today's webinar, we will be following up with you after the webinar is finished. For those of you that came on late, I'd just like to remind you again that today's webinar was recorded and that everyone will be receiving links to the on-demand portion as well as the PDF of the slides sometime early tomorrow morning. So also I'd like to remind you really quickly, as you log off, you will see a survey from us. If you could just take a few minutes to fill that out so we can get a better feel of how you guys felt about today's webinar. So appreciate your time, and thank you very much.